What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot to get into in the world of volleyball, such as Ball State taking down Loyola last week in men's volleyball. How did the Cardinals do it? And did they have an encore performance against Penn State? Also, how about UC San Diego finally getting their big breakout win of the season against USC? Also, how about Purdue Fort Wayne upsetting Penn State last Saturday? And CSUN of all teams upset Stanford, handing them their first loss. Also, the Omaha Supernovas registered their first win of the PVF, and the Atlanta Vibe, it's a vibe alright, as they're still undefeated through 3 weeks. And we had some 3C2A men's volleyball happening as Irvine Valley and Orange Coast both picked up 2 wins in the John Altobelli Memorial Quad. Are they on a collision course to be facing each other in the state championship? Hand me a volleyball. Set up the net, because I'm about to serve you up some volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IESR Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you have made your way into episode 232 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on Spreaker. Please do follow IE Sports Radio on X, formerly known as Twitter, TikTok, and on Instagram. We also have a Facebook page. All you just have to do is type in the word IE, Sports, and Radio in the search bar, like us, and then that's how you're able to follow us on Facebook. We also have a website, IESportsradio.com, for all of your latest sports news, our blog, our Hall of Fame, our Fans of the Month, our page dedicated to each podcast, such as Set Point, our community forum, and our merchandise shop. For the last 9 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, which is what I did last week, coaches, which is also what I did last week, and other authorized media personnel, to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports states around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. A huge shout to our sponsors. Notice how I said sponsors, not sponsor. Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, the single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, it's low in sugar, and high in protein. This is some of the best jerky you can get your hands on, and all you have to do is visit planetjerky.net and place your order. In addition, prices are slashed, and if you buy $50 or more on an order, you'll get shipping for free. Once again, a huge shout out to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. In addition, we have another sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations, and you're looking for that extra special touch. Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or friend that you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts is what you're looking for. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. A huge shout to Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B., the wife of founder of IE Sports Radio, Larry B. And the way you can follow Set Point on social media is on X, formerly known as Twitter, @set_point_IE, and on Instagram, @set_point_IESR. And I'm mainly available on social media @TeranRodriguez1 on X, formerly known as Twitter. And without any further delay, let us begin. So, NCAA men's volleyball action week number 5. It certainly did not disappoint as there were a bunch of good wins. Good wins from good teams. And I just gotta say, on Wednesday, it was the return of me of me, coming back to California and attending an NCAA men's volleyball match. Because while I did love Texas, and while I did love the aspect, and I liked going to the First Point Collegiate Challenge, and I loved visiting my brother, I will just say it didn't have NCAA men's volleyball. There are no Texas men's volleyball teams, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Sometimes these schools don't have the funding and whatnot. So, but that being said, Wednesday I made my return to California, and the first match I attended was UC Irvine UCLA. I promised y'all I was going to be covering this match, and I was going to be in attendance. So let's start off with that. Ralph Calise is in the chat room. He says, Teran, let's go. Have a great show. Thank you. And Jen B says, have a great show. And Mike Pat says, it's time for the best darn volleyball podcast on the internet. Thanks, Mike. All right, so going to this UCLA-UC Irvine match, I was expecting a barn burner. So, and honestly, at first it wasn't looking like it was going to be a barn burner. Early on, UC Irvine and UCLA were tight, and then UCLA just had a nice little scoring run, whether it was blocking or serving tough. But UCLA took the first set 25-18. UC Irvine just looked a little out of it. I was a little surprised just because, well, first and foremost, UCLA is a very good team, but UC Irvine was coming off of 2 big wins on the road against BYU. So I was a little surprised that UC Irvine just looked so off. But UCLA was as good as advertised. Yes, they did just lose to UC Santa Barbara last week, but UCLA looked pretty solid to start. And then they followed that up by thumping UC Irvine in set 2, 25-15. And then UCLA was up late in set number 3. I was thinking, oh, this is going to be a quick match, and maybe I can get home at like 9 o'clock. But UC Irvine really turned the tables. They really doubled down on getting the ball to Halir Heno. He was just having such a quiet night. I don't know if it was him not getting the ball that much, but honestly, I was a little surprised he wasn't his strong usual self. But it was in set 3 where he really started to come alive, and eventually UC Irvine benefited from UCLA's errors, and they took set 3 25-23, and for my sake, I was glad UC Irvine took that, because there's no worse feeling than getting swept at home, especially since this was the first match at the Bren Event Center. Yes, this was the first match because the previous matches that UC Irvine had at home were in Crawford Hall. Then in set 4, UC Irvine jumped out to an early lead. They didn't really relinquish it all that much as they took that 4th set 25-21. Then the 5th set, UC Irvine jumped out to a 3-0 lead, but unfortunately, UCLA being the talented team that they are, they came back, tied it up at 5-5, eventually led 8-7 at the halfway point, and then they just never looked back as they finished the match off on a 7-2 run to win set 5, 15-9, and the match. And the name you should all remember, Cooper Robinson, 22 kills. He had 5 digs, 2 service aces. He is that new it guy right there. Ethan Champlin had 13 kills for the Bruins. Ido David had 9 kills. UCLA at 321, which was quite nice. They finished the 5th set strong. They had 11 kills, 0 hitting errors. 11 kills, that's basically 2/3 of their set in points. UC Irvine, they hit 226. They were led by Halir Heno, 15 kills. Maxim Grigoriev, 11 kills. Connor Dahm, 8 kills. Nolan Flexen, he was solid, but he kind of cooled off after the first 2 sets. He had 6 kills. UCLA still trying to work out that libero experiment. They had 9 digs from Ido David and Ethan Champlin. They had 8 digs from Andrew Rowan. Cole Power had 9 digs for UC Irvine. And UCLA followed up that win with a 4-set win at home against UC Irvine at the John Wooden Center. It was actually played at John Wooden Center as opposed to Pauley Pavilion. But the 3rd set, the 2 teams split the first 2 sets. And then UCLA had to win a little bit of a marathon of a 3rd set. They took that 27-25. They led 2-0 or 2-1, and they finished strong. They built off that momentum, won the 4th set 25-21 as they won the week going 2-0. UC Irvine, unfortunate tough week. They finished 0-2, but they're still having a solid season. And the thing that you all need to know is that Cooper Robinson had another big game. He had 20-plus kills. But Ethan Champlin, he had to play libero. He was the libero. John Sparrow threw Ethan Champlin, an All-American outside hitter, at the libero position. He still is trying to figure out the libero of who is going to be that libero. As it originally was Hide Nakamura and Luca Kirchi, but now it's going to be Ethan Champlin at libero. He might switch it up for this week, just because this week it's Long Beach State versus UCLA week. So the takeaway for UCLA is they really showed that they are still a top 5 team, and beating UC Irvine is no easy feat. UC Irvine has a lot of studs on that team, and for them to win one on the road and for them to win one at home, albeit in John Wooden Center, it's a great week for UCLA. For Irvine, my takeaway is this. Obviously, they missed a big opportunity of winning a big match at home, especially their first match at the Brent Event Center. But I will say, the Anteaters still look pretty good. They just got to get Halir Heno going early and often. They don't feed the ball to him 99% of the time, but just get him going and get the middles going. In Irvine, they didn't really play bad. It's just that they just got off to such a awful start in that second set, and it was looking like this again. It was going to look like it was a sweep, but UC Irvine just turned the tables on UCLA in that third set, and they really showed some chops, and that's the UC Irvine team that everyone is expecting. Then also we had another big time matchup. Oh, I forgot to mention the numbers for UCLA UC Irvine. Cooper Robinson had 23 kills. He didn't have a 20-plus kill performance until that week, where he had 22 against UC Irvine at the Bren, and then 23 against UC Irvine at the John Wooden Center. Guy Guinness had 11 kills. Grant Sloan had 9 kills. Merrick McHenry had 6 kills. That's the scary thing about UCLA. They have so many options at the pin hitter positions. They could put anybody at the left side or right side, and it's going to make a tremendous impact. And now they've got Grant Sloan in the mix as well. That's really going to make UCLA a scary team going forward. And then UC Irvine, they had 3 players in double-digit kills, as Nolan Flexen had 19 kills. Nice bounce-back game, as David Niffen said, that he's still trying to get used to this big pace of play. Halir Heno had 16 kills. He hit 448. Flexen hit 385. Maxim Grigoriev had 12 kills. Connor Campbell, 8 kills. That was pretty much all their kill leaders. Grigoriev also had 11 digs as well, as Zach Rama also had 10 digs. But the big story was Ethan Champlin playing libero. Only 4 digs for him, but it looks like he's going to be the libero going forward. Then, circling the wagons back to Wednesday, we had another big upset. This one came at the hands of a New Jersey team, Princeton, upsetting UC Santa Barbara. Now, if you remember last week, I said Princeton, don't be surprised if they win at least one game last week, or if they win one game in week 5. And they played UC Santa Barbara on Wednesday. First set, Princeton never trailed. It was just practically a flawless set. 25-18, the Tigers won that first set. Then the second set, it looked like Princeton was going to win, but UC Santa Barbara made a late push, took the second set 26-24, but then Princeton responded in that third set 25-16. They won that set. And then the fourth set, Santa Barbara was not going to go out without a fight, but the Tigers were able to win that fourth set 25-21. Nairo Omene had 20 kills, while Jameson Vaccaro had 13 kills. Ben Harrington had 7 kills to go along with 10 digs. Henry Wedbush had 12 digs to go along with 42 assists. Harrington also had 4 aces, so what he lacked in the offensive department, he made up for in other departments such as digs and service aces. So my takeaway for Princeton is this. It is about time the Tigers got a big-time win, and they really performed well. What a way to kick off your homestand, as this was their first home game this season, because the other weeks they were on the road. And I really think that West Coast road trip really prepared Princeton very well. For UC Santa Barbara, my takeaway for them is this. I think they kind of got a little bit of a UCLA hangover. Obviously, that's normal just because you beat a very talented UCLA team on the road, but then you have to go all the way up east, try to take down another talented team in Princeton. There's a reason why Princeton, I was not surprised at this, just because Princeton had been battle tested. They played the likes of UC Irvine. They played the likes of BYU twice. They played the likes of CSUN, which beat USC last week. They played the likes of UC San Diego, which also pulled an upset last week. That's definitely battle-tested. Santa Barbara also has been battle-tested, but the big thing is Princeton was battle-tested on the road. Santa Barbara did have a lot of battles at home, such as Stanford and GCU, but Princeton was just battle-tested practically every week on the road. And that is why I'm not surprised Princeton wound up having such a strong game at home. But Santa Barbara, they're still looking for their consistency. They still have a young team. And this week wasn't all that easy and fun for them. But that being said, let's jump to another big upset that happened this past Wednesday. We had UC San Diego, the Tritons, the number 19 Tritons, upsetting tied for number 12 USC this past week. USC took the first set 25-18. Not too many problems for the Trojans. And then the second set, the Tritons were able to reel their way back in. They took the second set to 25-21. Then the third set, USC narrowly escaped with that. They took it 25-23. And then the fourth set, it was pretty much all UC San Diego, but it got a little close late in that fourth set. But the Tritons took that fourth set 25-23. And then in the fifth set, UC San Diego jumped out to a 9-4 lead. They were up 13-9. It looked like this was going to be a one-sided affair, as UC San Diego actually didn't trail in that set, but USC was not going away. But then UC San Diego put the match away as they won their first big game at home, first big win of the season, as the young Tritons showed a lot of chops, as they had 17 kills from Anthony Sherfon, Matthew Lim had 15 kills, Josh Schellinger, 13 kills. Despite hitting 266 compared to USC's 252, I thought the Tritons just really showed up to the party. They had 14 service aces, 6 from Sherfon. That is big right there. They did miss 26 serves, but they made up for them down the stretch, and they just looked solid all around. USC was led by Dylan Klein, 15 kills, Jack Ducher, 11 kills, Wes Smith, 9 kills, Kyle Paulson, 8 kills. My takeaway for USC is this. I'm a little concerned for SC. Well, first and foremost, let's look at the positives for USC. They ran the middle better. As opposed to the loss against CSUN, they didn't run the middle all that much. I basically said on last week's show, USC has got to run the middle. They have to get Kyle Paulson involved. They have to get Wes Smith involved. If they don't, they're going to be up a creek without a paddle going into MPSF play. But this is what I was talking about to Jeff Nygaard at the First Point Invitational. The Big West is stacked from top to bottom. Now, I'm not trying to say that the MPSF does not hold a candle to the Big West, but this is what I mean. Any team from the Big West can beat anybody at any time, and vice versa. I mean, look at what Santa Barbara did against UCLA on the road. Look at what UC San Diego did. They needed a big-time win because they have a young squad, and winning at home against a quality opponent like USC is really going to boost their morale come Big West play. But for USC, this is kind of concerning for me regarding them. I mean, yes, they ran the middle well, but you just can't have inconsistency in preseason. They did bounce back against UC San Diego on Friday with a 3-set win over the Tritons at Galen Center, but you just can't be up and down every single week because this week, USC has got UC Irvine on Wednesday at the Bren, and then Saturday at Galen. It's going to be a big week for the MPSF versus the Big West. Let me just tell you that. Then we jump to Thursday. We have number 15 Ball State upsetting Loyola Chicago, number 11, in 4 sets. All the sets were decided by 2 points. The third set was what really, really mattered. This was the set that Ball State needed to win to basically swing the momentum and the advantage to them. There were 20 ties and 10 lead changes. Ball State took that third set 27-25, and they rode the momentum from that third set won the fourth set 25-23. It was a big night for Ball State as Tanashi Indava-Zocheva had 19 kills. He had 9 digs, 14 kills apiece from Patrick Rogers and Braden Savitsky-Lind. Ball State as a team hit 285 despite Loyola hitting 326. Parker Van Buren led the way for Loyola with 19 kills, while Jake Reed added 15 kills and Daniel Fabakovic had 12 kills. 12 digs as well for Parker Van Buren, but only 1 service ace on the night, and they missed 22 serves. The commentators were basically saying Loyola is missing a bunch of serves. Ball State only missed 13, despite them only having 3 aces, but this is where missing a bunch of serves bites you in the butt. I will give credit to Loyola. They had 10.5 blocks to Ball State's 4, but still, Ball State was resilient as heck, and this was probably their biggest win of the season. They needed this win just because they knew they needed to start MIVA play off 1-0. Because the MIVA is looking really good. You've got Ball State that's up there, Ohio State, Loyola despite this loss, Lewis is improved, Lindenwood, they can possibly pull an upset here or there, Purdue Fort Wayne, McKendree, especially in the MIVA tournament, that could be something big right there. Queens and Quincy, they also could be upset-minded. They took on each other this past week. So the MIVA is definitely a conference that is worth noting, and it's definitely an interesting race to say the least, especially come tournament time. Then we jump to Friday. Circling the wagons back to New Jersey, we had Princeton sweeping number 10 Pepperdine, 25-19, 25-23, and 25-23. This match was a testament to Princeton, as this was another big test for them, but this time they were at home, and they passed the test with flying colors. Nahiro Omene had 15 kills, Ben Harrington 9 kills, Ryan Venna and Jameson Vaccaro both having 7 kills. Princeton hit 435 despite Pepperdine hitting 325. Cole Kachansky had 12 kills and he hit 400. Cole Rasick had 7 kills. Princeton only missed 9 serves, while Pepperdine missed 17 serves. And it looked like Princeton also dominated the blocks for the most part, winning that category 9.5 to 3.5. And Princeton also had 5 aces. So my takeaway for Princeton is this. Last week was the best week Princeton has had in a while. And they need the momentum going into EIVA play in a couple more weeks. After this week, EIVA starts and Princeton gets the toughest matchup of all. They play Penn State, who, although they've had their ups and downs, they're still up there with a lot of upperclassmen such as Toby Ezeonu, Owen Rose, Mihal Kowal. Their big question mark is the setter on who it's going to be between Luke Snyder or Michael Schwobe or heck even Josh Rosenblum. So for Princeton, I was very impressed by them, and these 2 wins definitely helped them. And what a way to open up the week at home. Again, this was their first week at home, as the first 4 weeks were on the road. They had to go to the likes of Utah, California. They were just all over the place. And the fact that Princeton passed with flying colors this week speaks to high volumes of how they deserve to be a top 10 team. And they were my team of the week. For Pepperdine, my takeaway for them is this. I don't know what to say about them. They're certainly not a top 10 team, but they are a top 20 team. The only thing is that they haven't been battle-tested all that much. Prior to last week, their biggest challenge was against Long Beach State, and the Beach just curb-stomped them. This was a matchup that I was not ultimately surprised in. I was surprised Princeton swept Pepperdine, but I wasn't surprised that Princeton wound up winning, just because Princeton has so much talent. I still think to this day, Ben Harrington should have been an All-American, at least All-American honorable mention. No offense to the others, but honestly, Princeton is such an under-the-radar team, and they definitely have a lot of upside. Then we jump to this upset on Friday. We had Damon upsetting tied for number 12 UC Santa Barbara at the Harvard Invitational. Now, Santa Barbara actually was without a bunch of guys. They didn't have Jess Bianchi and UC Santa Barbara wasn't running their normal lineup. Jack Walmer wasn't the setter. That was Greg Baglio, who had 48 assists. Ben Court had 10 digs and 12 kills. Leading the way for Santa Barbara was Reese Barnett, who had 23 kills. Patrick Kane still played. Sam Meester played, but no Josh Aruya. Again, Jack Walmer wasn't in his normal position, and no Jess Bianchi. Damon was led by Cameron Milligan, who had 17 kills. Billy Weiberg had 12 kills, and Andre Arabaz had 10 kills. I can't really have a full-on speculation because, again, Santa Barbara didn't play their usual lineup. But I will say this, if you're the number 12 team in the nation and you play Damon, you might be losing that one. Because Damon upset CSUN last season, and they were number 12 in the nation. Santa Barbara was tied for number 12 in the nation, and they wound up losing on the road. Well, not on the road, but on a neutral site. But for the Gauchos, this was a tough one. The coaches committee was not merciful to them, that's for sure. They're 3-7, but they did manage to beat Harvard over the weekend in the Harvard Invitational. So for Santa Barbara, they still have a lot of work to do with that young roster. Then this wasn't an upset right here, but Penn State did sweep Ball State. It was the second of a back-to-back for the Cardinals, but Penn State won it in 3 sets, 26-24, 25-22, and 25-19. Penn State had 3 different players in double-digit kills. John Kerr having 13 kills, Mihal Kowal 12 kills, Michael Valenzi 10 kills, Owen Rose and Toby Zionu each having 8 kills. Penn State hit 433 as Penn State also outdug Ball State 35-26. They had 4 more service aces than the Cardinals. They missed 20 serves. That is the thing I frown upon. But it was still a solid night because they made up for it in the offensive category. They had 51 kills to Ball State's 33, as Ball State was led by Braden Savitsky, Lind, and Tanashi and Dava Zocheva, both having 9 kills. So my takeaway for Ball State is this. It's passable just because obviously it's the second of a back-to-back. You were at home. You were coming off of an emotional and tiring 4-set win over Loyola, but you still have to find the consistency. And it kind of speaks to high volumes that this cannot be preached anymore. Like, you have to find the balance of not being too high on the wins, but not being too low on the losses. But it was still a good week for Ball State. For Penn State, it's a very good road win, especially coming off of beating the number 1 team in the nation, or the previous the previous number 1 team in the nation that was undefeated. So for Penn State, them winning was huge on the road, but I'm not done with Penn State, as Penn State actually had a second straight matchup in Indiana, but this time they went to Fort Wayne to take on Purdue Fort Wayne. The Mastodons were looking for a big win as Penn State won the first set 25-21. Purdue Fort Wayne won the second set 26-24. Needed a little bit of overtime, but the Mastodons got the win right there in that set. Then the third set, 16 ties, 8 lead changes. Mastodons win that third set 25-23. Then Penn State is able to, for the most part, control that fourth set 25-18. And then the fifth set. This was where it got crazy. Multiple set point attempts for Purdue Fort Wayne. Penn State was just not going away. But eventually, Purdue Fort Wayne wound up winning the fifth set 20-18. Only 1 lead change, as it was mostly Penn State leading for the first half of that fifth set, and then Purdue Fort Wayne took charge, never relinquished the lead from there, as the Mastodons get their first big win of the season. They had 987 in attendance for this after they had over 1,300 against Hawaii in one of their matches. Mastodons were led by Mark Frazier, who had 24 kills. He hit 306. John Diedrich, 21 kills, only 1 hitting error. He hit 513. Bryce Walker, he had 10 kills. He hit 909. Purdue Fort Wayne as a team hit 344. Just one point, well, not 1 point, but 1/10 ahead of Penn State, who hit 343. The Nittany Lions were led by Mihal Kowal, who had 25 kills. He hit 383. Michael Valenzi had 13 kills. Owen Rose had 11 kills. Toby Ezeonu had 9 kills. Ryan Merck had 15 digs. Purdue-Fort Wayne didn't even have one player in double digits in digs, as their dig leader was Dydrich, who had 8 digs. So my takeaway for Penn State is this. It's passable just because they had their second straight match on the road, but it was in the same state, and the fact that they wound up losing is a little head-scratching because they had such a great win over Ball State, only for them to kind of crumble against the likes of Purdue-Fort Wayne. Now, that's credit to Purdue-Fort Wayne just because, like I said, the MIVA is so stacked, and Purdue-Fort Wayne is definitely not short of talent, especially with players aiding John Dydrich. I was very surprised that Mark Frazier was the kill leader and not John Dydrich, because John Dydrich is kind of the heartbeat for that Mastodon team. There was another upset that happened on Saturday, as we had Stanford getting upended, suffering their first loss of the season to number 17 CSUN, as CSUN took the match 19-25, 25-19, 25-21, and 25-22. CSUN was led by Kyle Hobus, who had 22 kills. Jalen Phillips had 19 kills. Griffin Walters had 11 kills. I've been telling y'all, CSUN didn't lose anybody big to graduation, and having most of their team back definitely helps. Donovan Constable had 52 assists. CSUN hit 383 while holding Stanford to 284. But Stanford was without Will Rotman. Will Rotman did not play. It was not disclosed by Stanford in its recap, but he didn't play in the first match, which Stanford actually won, but he didn't play also in the second match, and Stanford missed him. Kevin Lamp led Stanford with 17 kills. Their next kill leader was Moses Wagner, who had 6 kills, and Nathan Litsky had 5 kills to go along with 28 assists. So the takeaway for Stanford is this. Without Will Rotman, they're just not the same team. They just aren't. And it looks like they didn't have Alex Rotman as well, Will's brother. But that being said, they need to get Will Rotman and Alex Rotman back. Maybe it was because of a family issue or anything of that sort. But they need to get him back ASAP, because if not, then Stanford could be at the mercy of the likes of Grand Canyon, UCLA, you name it. So that is pretty much that for the notables in terms of upsets. But we also had some other notables in Week 5, as Alan Knipe got his 400th win of the season. I was in attendance for this match, I actually wasn't even aware of Alan Knipe picking up his 400th win, and this being his 400th win, until the end of the match. I got to look at the game notes when it comes to Long Beach State, especially since I follow them and I see them at the matches, or I go to most of the matches. But for Long Beach State, they swept King on Friday and on Saturday. King having a tough time, this season, but they're battle tested. They take on Mount Olive in Conference of Carolinas play. That should be a nice little matchup right there. And Long Beach State, they're still undefeated. Long Beach State is undefeated going into this nice little matchup right here against UCLA this week. Friday, they're going to be at home. Saturday, it's at UCLA, whether it's at Pauley Pavilion or at the John Wood Center. Regardless, it's going to be fireworks when it comes to Long Beach State UCLA. It's a rematch of last year's Final Four. But for Long Beach State, Alan Knight picking up his 400th win, obviously he said it was special, and honestly, it's been a great ride for Alan Knipe, especially since he won that with his son being on the team, his son Aiden. So, and I got to ask Alan about what it meant for having his 400th win. So I was impressed by Long Beach State for the most part. And the scary thing about that first match is that Long Beach State didn't even play Sotiris Shapanis, as I guess he got the night off, but everyone else stepped up, whether it was Clark Godbold, Nathan Harlan, who I call the Swiss Army knife or the five-tool player. Skylar Varga also shined. But now this week's behind them. last week's behind them. This week is going to be a barn burner. And, oh man, get your popcorn ready, get everything ready, get your tickets for that Long Beach State UCLA match. And then another notable matchup, we had Hawaii taking down Tusculum twice. One of the matches, Hawaii, it was like 5-5, and then eventually Hawaii ended the match on an 18-0 run, courtesy of Kurt Nursterer. And 5-5, just that's a little food for thought right there. And then 18-0 run. It was basically like 7-5 at one point, if not 7-6. So it's basically a fun little. It was basically a nice little matchup for Hawaii. This week they've got Stanford at home. That's going to be a real fun one. And it's going to prove what will Stanford do following this past loss against CSUN. And I believe that is that regarding all of Week 5 in terms of NCAA men's volleyball. And I've been meaning to give a shout-out to this coach. St. Francis's men's volleyball coach picked up his 300th win. Mike Rumbaugh picked up his 300th win back in Week 3 of the First Point Collegiate Challenge. He is the head coach of St. Francis, and it was a big win for Rumbaugh getting his 300th win. And it's always special to basically get a milestone win. And as Alan Knipe said, they're special just because you've won it with a certain group and you've basically been through the ups and downs of your team. But what matters is you got to move on. So it's basically the whole new week, new everything. So a late congratulations to Mike Rumbaugh on getting his 300th career victory, which was a 3-set win over Central State. And that's going to do it for all the NCAA men's volleyball notables. Now we got to go to the AVCA Coaches Poll. As Mikey Two Guns popped into the chat room, he says, have a great, he says, what's up, my friend? And he said, I saw your interview on Twitter, Teran. Fantastic question you asked to the coach at the press conference. Thank you, Mikey. And also, Larry B was in the chat room, as well as Davidson Crooks and Patty Bax. They're all saying, have a great show. Thank you. All right, now we've got to move on to the AVCA Coaches Poll. And like I said, the AVCA Coaches Poll was not merciful to anybody that lost a big game. So 20 through 16 consisted of Purdue Fort Wayne at 20, UC San Diego at 19, George Mason at 18, UC Santa Barbara at 17, and CSUN at 16. 15 through 11 consisted of USC at 15, Lewis at 14, Loyola at 13, Pepperdine at 12, and Ball State at 11. 10 through 6 consists of Princeton at 10, Penn State at 9, BYU at 8, UC Irvine at 7, and Ohio State at 6. 5 through 1 consists of Stanford at 5, UCLA at 4, Hawaii at 3, Grand Canyon at 2, and your still number one team in the AVCA/NVA National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Coaches Poll is Long Beach State. They got all the first place votes. Princeton is ranked 10th, which is tied for its highest it's ever been ranked. Grand Canyon is still undefeated. They had a nice little weekend in the Harvard Invitational. I still don't think they're worthy of number 2. I think Hawaii is worthy of number 2. Grand Canyon hasn't been all that challenged. Yes, Hawaii did lose the 5-set match to Loyola, but I will just say that set was all Loyola rallying back from 13-10 down. So I just think that Grand Canyon still has to show me something. They still have to show me that they deserve to be number 2. And Long Beach State, they showed me in that match against Pepperdine that they deserve to be number 1. If they had won in 4 or 5, then I'd maybe question them at number 1. But Long Beach State is deserving of the number 1 spot. UCLA jumped up to 4 after Stanford lost. I know everyone is going to say, well, they didn't have the Rotman brothers, but the coaches committee doesn't care. All they care about are 2 letters, W and L. And UCLA won twice. They jumped up to 4. Stanford went down 1 spot. They went down to 5. Ohio State remains at 6, as well as UC Irvine remaining at 7. Penn State's loss to Purdue Fort Wayne bumped them down 1, and then bumped BYU back up 1. And then Princeton, like I said, they jumped 6 spots, which was the biggest jump of the week. So there you have it. Mikey says, Teran, you are becoming quite the respected voice within the NCAA community. When I interviewed the Boston College coach and I gave the name, dropped that I knew you. Well, basically what Mikey says is that he interviewed Boston College's men's volleyball coach, and he basically informed him, he told him about me, and his eyes lit up. He's mentioned that. He mentioned that on his show back when he was with us on the network. It gave me instant credibility. He had some other great things to say about you that I will tell you offline. And he says that it makes me happy to see good things happen to good people, and Teran is as good as they get. Well, thank you, Mikey. I definitely appreciate that. That really means a lot that you said that about me, and I have to give a hats off to you too, brother, and all that you do. All right, but that's that for the AVCA/NVA National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Coaches Poll. Now we got to get to the Off the Block Media Poll from last week. And these are released every Tuesday. Honestly, you definitely got to check out Off the Block. Vinny Lopes does an excellent job, as well as Jonathan Bates and Brandon Johnson. I think his name is Johnson. Is it Johnson or Johnston? Johnson. I think he's also a coach. Actually, no, he's not a coach. I don't think he is the coach at Valencia, but I could be wrong. Anyway, Off the Block National Media Poll. This is from media people such as myself, Vinny Lopes, Jonathan Bates, Brandon Johnson, Rob Aspero, Anne-Marie Anderson. Ira Thor is a new member of the Off the Block Media Poll. He covers NJIT, and he's also the play-by-play announcer for the National Volleyball Association, or the NVA. Definitely check out his work. Got a lot of compliments from the NJIT Long Beach State men's volleyball match. There are other notables in regards to the Off the Block Media Poll, but I'm not going to name all of them. I already named them back in, I think it was the first week of the new year, if not the second week, but I digress. So 10 through 6 consists of Pepperdine at 10, BYU at 9, UC Irvine at 8, Ohio State at 7, Penn State at 6, and then 5 through 1 consists of UCLA at 5, Grand Canyon at 4, Hawaii at 3, Stanford at 2, and Long Beach State at number 1. So Stanford actually got 2 first-place votes just because they have been playing all ranked opponents this past season. So I will just say Long Beach State, I still think they're still the consensus number 1, but Stanford losing this past week kind of knocks them down a peg. Now here's who I voted for. So I voted Pepperdine at 10, which is correct. BYU 9, also correct. UC Irvine 8, that's also was correct. I voted Grand Canyon at 7. Now, y'all are going to probably criticize me for this vote, for this from last week. Y'all are probably going to say, well, Teran, Grand Canyon's undefeated. Why are you voting them at 7? Well, Grand Canyon hasn't really shown me a whole lot. They did beat UC Santa Barbara in week 1. Yes, but Grand Canyon, outside of that win, they haven't really shown me all too much regarding who they've really beaten. Now, that being said, Grand Canyon will eventually see their schedule pick up, especially when it comes to MPSF play. The MPSF is really going to be big time. And then 6, I voted Penn State as well. 5, I voted UCLA. 4, I voted Ohio State. Now, many are probably going to wonder, well, why would you put Ohio State at 4 and not Grand Canyon at 4? Well, that's simple, because Ohio State at least beat UCLA. They have some quality wins. Yes, they lost to Penn State, but in one of the matches that Ohio State played against Penn State, they didn't have Jacob Pastor, as he had a lower body injury. And when you don't have him, I kind of got to take that into consideration. Just like how Will Rotman and Alex Rotman did not play for Stanford in the loss to CSUN, which I think is definitely something to factor in as well. So I understand y'all are probably going to hate me and say, why would you put Ohio State over Grand Canyon? Well, Ohio State has earned the right to basically be ranked in the top 5. Grand Canyon, I'm still trying to wait to see what kind of big breakout win they have. And I hope they do pull off that big breakout win and make me eat my words, but I don't know. Now, number 3, I voted Stanford at 3. Yo, this was definitely a tough one. Number 2, I voted for Hawaii, and then number 1, I voted Long Beach State. But you can make the argument of where to put Stanford and Hawaii. Now, I totally get why Stanford deserves to be number 2 ahead of Hawaii. Stanford was undefeated going into week number 5. But here's the thing. Stanford still had a couple of close calls here and there. They nearly lost to UC Santa Barbara. I don't know if they were worthy of number 2. Looking back at it, I think they should have been. I think I should have voted them at number 2. And then some were saying that Stanford deserves to be number 1, which is definitely a great argument, considering Stanford has played such a tougher schedule than Long Beach State has. That being said, Stanford, in my opinion, I still think needed to prove me something. They still needed to prove to me that they deserve to be number 2 or number 1. And I'm starting to, me not picking Stanford, or me not voting Stanford at number 2 is starting to look a little bit better. So I'm kind of happy with my decision of putting Stanford at 3 under Hawaii. And then, like I said, Long Beach State deserves to be the consensus number 1, just because they really proved themselves against Pepperdine. They not only beat Pepperdine at home, but they stomped all over them. So that was who I voted for in the Off the Block media poll. And then for this week's Off the Block media poll, I voted Princeton at 10, BYU at 9, Penn State at 8, UC Irvine 7, Ohio State 6, UCLA 5, Stanford 4, Grand Canyon 3, Hawaii 2, and Long Beach State number 1. Now, I probably am going to get some flack for putting UCLA at 5. I think Stanford, you could make the argument that Stanford should be below UCLA, but remember, UCLA lost to UC Santa Barbara. At least you can make the excuse of Stanford didn't have 2 of its best players in the loss to CSUN. Yes, they didn't have Will Rotman in the loss in the win against CSUN, and they wound up winning that one. But back-to-back matches, and you're playing a talented and under-the-radar CSUN team, which the previous week they managed to beat USC. But now, I mean, you could make the argument where UCLA and Stanford wants to be put. I still think Stanford deserves to be 4. UCLA, unfortunately, did have the loss to UC Santa Barbara. That is what makes me want to put UCLA under Stanford. And they also lost to Ohio State. So, and then you could also make the argument that Ohio State could be ranked ahead of UCLA just because they beat them. But Stanford, in my opinion, I think they deserve to be 4. Grand Canyon is 3. I put Grand Canyon at 3. I put Hawaii at 2, which I have 0 regrets on doing. And then I put Long Beach State at number 1. So that's who I voted for in this week's Off the Block media poll of June 6, 2024. The whole media poll is going to be will be released tomorrow at approximately maybe noontime. But we'll see what happens. Just keep an eye out on Off the Block and keep an eye out for my posts, especially on Instagram. I will put in the story that Off the Block's media poll will be released. So there you have it in that regard. All right, we're going to take ourselves a quick little commercial break. As Mikey Two Guns said, I'm so bummed that Boston College is losing Elena Crabtree. Do you know of where she is transferring to a school on the West Coast? That I'm not entirely sure of. And Mikey also asked if you already cover it, but he would like to wonder how my trip to the Texas leg of volleyball went. And I will say this, Mikey, my trip to Texas was great. I enjoyed going to Austin for the First Point Collegiate Challenge, and I enjoyed my visit to Texas altogether, visiting my brother in Bedford, and also, again, driving or heading down to Austin. It was great as well. And from my trip, I went from Austin all the way to back to Bedford instead of just flying. So there you have it. And you know what? I will check to see if Elena Crabtree has committed elsewhere. No, she hasn't. She has not yet committed just yet. So we'll see. And Yeah, I do have a vote in the media poll rankings. I do have a vote in the off the block media poll I do have a vote for off the block. It's the AVCA coaches poll that I don't have a vote in. So, yeah, the media poll is separate from the AVCA. But that being said, we're going to take ourselves a quick break. When we come back, we have some Pro Volleyball Federation to discuss. We have a little 3C2A men's volleyball to discuss. And we also have week number 6 to preview, as we have not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 top 5 matches. So keep it locked here. You are listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, sports fans. It's me, your boy Larry B, and I want to walk you through the world of sports. No, not just the mainstream major TV deal type sports, although those are important too. But let me be your guide through your journey of all sports, from college to the pros, the minors, and everything in between. Each week, we are talking sports galore with true diehards just like you from a hardcore fan's perspective that's sure to quench your thirst around leagues you may know all too well and some you may even discover here. That's right, sports fans. If you love sports of all kinds, enjoy hearing amazing sports stories, and respect all sports because you know how difficult any of them can be to play or compete in, then this is your show. Join me, your boy Larry B, on the defining moment each week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and let the sports come to you.
Hello, ladies and sinners. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour, every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter, at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, at Cale_Henderson on Twitter. At any time, be happy to reply. Always want to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with segment number 2 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows, such as Chi-Town Weekly, The Defining Moment, and Sin City Sports. With all that said and done, let's get on into the second half of our show, as it's time to discuss some Pro Volleyball Federation. So, the San Diego Mojo actually had the honor of kicking off their season this past week. But they had to do so on the road just because reasons. And before I get on into that, Mikey Two Guns says, it's on my bucket list to take a vacation to California and visit you, Teran. I'd love to catch some volleyball matches live with you, and you could teach me how to analyze the game. Well, I appreciate that. And he says, one question I've really wanted to ask you is if you think Texas can compete or complete the three-peat this year in women's volleyball. That would be unbelievable if they did, something you never see in sports these days. Well, that's actually a good question, Mikey. And I've actually said it before that yes, they can. Especially with getting the likes of Whitney Launstein and a bunch of other really good transfers, and Maddie Skinner returns. So, yes, they did lose Asia O'Neal at graduation, but Texas is not rebuilding. They are reloading, and they're going to be some kind of scary this upcoming fall. And yes, I know Ella Swindle is not going to be 100%, but that's why they brought in the other setter from Baylor. So it just goes to so to answer that question, I think they can definitely attempt to pull off the three-peat. However, they've got some competition, stiff competition with the likes of Pitt, Nebraska, Wisconsin. I still think will be good. Penn State, I think it's going to be good, especially getting a couple of transfers from Nebraska. So I think Texas this fall is going to have some competition. But if they played their best volleyball in the postseason, I think that we could be seeing a three-peat. But let's go over some Pro Volleyball Federation. So the San Diego Mojo kicked off their season against the Atlanta Vibe on Thursday at the Gas South Arena. But I will say this: if you missed this match, unfortunately, you didn't miss much. The only thing you kind of missed is the San Diego Mojo kicking off their season, and the Mojo got swept by the Atlanta Vibe 25-17, 25-15, and 25-16. You got to remember, Atlanta has 2 matches underneath their belts prior to that match, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Leah Edmond led the way with 16 kills. Grace Cleveland had 8 kills. Tori Stringer, or Tori Dilfer Stringer, had 37 assists and 9 digs. Morgan Hentz had 13 digs. Lecator member Monet added 5 kills and 10 digs. The thing about Atlanta was they actually saw their star player, or one of their star players, Allie Linehan, or Allie Stumler, leave set 1 with what appeared to be a foot injury. I would think it was like a non-injury from her side of the net. I think one of her teammates accidentally stepped on maybe the toes or the front foot of her, and she had to get helped off and helped to the locker room. She was back on the bench, but they didn't need for her to come back in. San Diego was led by Temi Thomas Ailara, who had 10 kills and 8 digs. Lindsay Stalzer had 6 kills. Marie Shara Medina Venegas had 12 digs. Nutsaro Tomcom had 17 assists and 7 digs. So my takeaway for this matchup is there's not much to be taken away of. It shows that Atlanta Vibe deserves to be second in that PVF preseason poll. And honestly, they had their first home match of the season after taking on Orlando and Omaha the previous week. So I will say, San Diego, there's kind of a reason why they were chosen to finish 5th in the PVF standings. I'm not trying to say San Diego is going to stink this year, but I will say I think the level gap and the talent gap between Atlanta and San Diego is very wide. And it got worse for San Diego as they actually had to hit the road to the land of volleyball, Nebraska, to take on the Omaha Supernovas, as the Supernovas swept the Mojo 25-17, 25-18, and 25-22 at the CHI Health Arena. Bethania de la Cruz had 13 kills. Paige Briggs had 8 kills and 9 digs. Kendall White had 10 digs. Sydney Hilly had 26 assists and 8 digs. Oh, and Tori Dixon also chipped in 6 kills for Omaha. And then for San Diego, they were led by Ronica Stone, who had 12 kills. Morgan Lewis had 9 kills and 6 digs. Lindsay Stalzer had 7 kills and 9 digs. Nutsara Tomcom had 34 assists and 7 digs. Now, obviously the box score in terms of the final set scores kind of shows it, but the mojo improved from this match. You want to know why? Well, San Diego had 42 kills against the Supernovas, whereas against the Vibe, they only had 26. Hence why Tomcom had double the assists against Omaha than she did against Atlanta. So at least San Diego kind of had a little bit of familiarization. They're still a work in progress, as unfortunately they're still kind of in that stage of they were going into this week blind. But at the very least, they got the matches out of the way, and they finally have some experience, and hopefully for their sake, they can turn it around. It's still very early. That's only their first 2 matches. They still have 22 matches remaining. And I really want to go to their home opener against Grand Rapids Rise? Grand Rapids Rise. That's on the 23rd. That's their first home game at the Viejas Arena. But with all that said and done, that's not for another few weeks. So this week, we have the Las Vegas Thrill going to be making their debut as they hit the road to the land of volleyball to take on the Omaha Supernovas at the CHI Health Center. If I said CHI Health Arena, I apologize. So all of these matches are now going to be streamed on YouTube, which I think is the best way to go. They don't have to go. Y'all don't got to go to Bally Live or basically Stadium. You don't got to use those apps. You just got to go to the YouTube page, type in Pro Volleyball Federation, you go to their page, and then go to live, boom. So that's basically the way of doing things so simple, but not any simpler. So Mikey says, Teran, can you get some and pull some strings to get a pro volleyball team to Boston? Well, I definitely would, but it's all about the league expanding. And I'm surprised that there hasn't been a pro volleyball team expanding to Boston, because they have one. There's going to be one in Dallas, there's going to be one in Indiana, and there's also going to be one in Kansas City, but nothing on Boston. So hopefully we can get a pro volleyball team, whether it's the NVA, the League One volleyball, which will be happening next year, and then possibly the pro volleyball. So hopefully we will get a pro volleyball team to Boston. So back to the league schedule for this week. So we had the Las Vegas Thrill taking on the Atlanta Supernovas on Wednesday. Then on Friday, we have the Grand Rapids Rise hitting the road to Gas South Arena to take on the Atlanta Vibe. 7 p.m. Eastern start time. Oh, and the Omaha-Las Vegas matchup will be an 8 p.m. Eastern start time. And then Saturday, we have the Las Vegas Thrill heading down to the Edition Financial Arena to take on the Orlando Valkyries at 7 p.m. Eastern. So I've introduced to you all every team in the league except for the Las Vegas Thrill. So let us introduce the Las Vegas Thrill's roster. Cue the Key and Peele East versus West football music. Except not really. Cont Bell. Cont Bell. I think that's how it's pronounced. Cont Bell, Texas. Anna Church. Her school isn't listed. Alicia Glass Childress, Penn State. Gabby Gonzalez, Oregon. Inez Havali, University of Kansas. Saskia Hip, or Hippie. Saskia Hippie. Her school isn't listed. Janet Kalaniuvalu. Her school isn't listed. Hannah Maddox, South Alabama. Amani MacArthur. Her school isn't listed. Molly McCage, Texas. Kylie Murr, Minnesota. and Ohio State, and the Ohio State. Berkeley Oblad, Utah. Paulina Prito Criame. Her school isn't listed, but didn't she go to like Florida or Georgia Tech? I digress. Hannah Pukis, Oregon. Maddie Skemmerhorn. Maddie Skemmerhorn, Purdue. Lane Van Bursick, Pitt. All right, that's that for their roster. Their coach isn't listed. Okay, they don't. Where's their coach? It's not on here. Why is their coach not on here? No. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, so that's the Vegas Thrill. And here's hoping they will be playing their matches at the Dollar Loan Center. Their first match isn't until Thursday, February 15th, when they play the Omaha Supernovas. Now, one of our hosts, Cale Henderson, the host of Sin City Sports, I want to say he lives in the Nebraska area. So I don't know if Cale Henderson is listening, but I encourage him to maybe, hence the word maybe, check out the Las Vegas Thrill versus the Omaha Supernovas. Just know if you go, make sure you follow the clear bag policy. All right. But that is that for the Vegas Thrill and their roster. I guess I should also make note of what to expect from these matches. Well, for the Supernovas, I don't want to say this in a mean way to Vegas, but expect the Supernovas to defend their home court. It's not that I don't think the Vegas Thrill can beat the Supernovas, but the Supernovas were chosen to finish first in the PVF. The Vegas Thrill were chosen to finish, unfortunately, dead last. That being said, anything could happen. So, hopefully for the Vegas... And this is the Vegas Thrill's first match of their inaugural season, or in their season entirely. But regardless, I would expect Omaha to win this one. Nothing against the Thrill, but I just think Omaha is just stacked all across the board. And then Friday, when the Grand Rapids Rise take on the Atlanta Vibe, I think this is probably going to be a very good match. I really think that the Atlanta Vibe is going to get a challenge from the Grand Rapids Rise. Gen B says they need more teams. This 2 to 3 weeks between matches is annoying. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a little inconsistent, whereas the NVA, they kind of do it like they have every team facing off against one another, against certain teams, whatchamacallit, every weekend. Well, not every weekend, but once every month, late in the month, or the beginning of the month, which I'll be getting to sometime down the road. But for Grand Rapids Rise versus the Atlanta Vibe, this is going to be a barn burner. I would not be surprised if that one went 5, and I would not be surprised if Atlanta basically had to sweat that one out. And I agree, Jen. I think Grand Rapids Rise versus the Atlanta Vibe is going to be something special. Well, and if I wasn't going to be at the Long Beach State versus UCLA match at the Pyramid, I totally would go. I would totally see this one, but maybe I can see this one because it's going to start at 4 p.m. my time. So at the very least, I'll get a little bit of a warm up of a match to watch before I get to see another match to watch in person. And then Saturday's match between the Las Vegas Thrill and the Orlando Valkyries. Well, I know how the Valkyries played against the Vibe, and they didn't even have a match going into that matchup against Atlanta. So here's my thing. I wouldn't be surprised if Orlando won. But again, this whole thing is basically any given week, where any team can push any team to the limits. And just because Orlando is playing at home does not mean it's a guaranteed win. Vegas is going to have its feet wet after facing the Omaha Supernovas. But I will say, the Orlando Valkyries, they're definitely better than what most people give them credit for. I think Orlando is vastly underrated, especially with the likes of a few players on their team, mainly the really talented, the queen of Arkansas women's volleyball, or as most people refer to her as, oh, they don't have, I'm blanking on, oh man, the queen of Arkansas women's volleyball being, why am I blanking on her name? I should know her name. Oh my gosh, how am I? The queen, you know who I'm talking about. And honestly, I'm gonna have to sadly look up her name. But Jill Gillen, that's who I'm thinking of. Jill Gillen. How did I blank on that name? Jill Gillen. I haven't even been one. I've only been 2 months removed of covering NCAA women's volleyball. But Jill Gillen is definitely making that team's motor go, and I really think Orlando is one. That's one of the reasons why they are so good. And it's not just her. You also got Carly Graham, Abby Hansen. The list goes on and on. Georgia Murphy is a fantastic libero, by the way. Carly Scott, the former AVP player, has shined in the first matchup against Atlanta. And then you got Azani Teeler, who's going to shine really well. So, all in all for Orlando, don't be surprised if they win, but Vegas is definitely going to compete in that one. And speaking of the devil, Cale Henderson, the host of Sin City Sports, pops in. He says, "What's up, Teran, my brother? Nebraska volleyball didn't have one senior on last year's team. I expect a great year. Thoughts?" Yeah, I basically discussed this a little earlier in the show, that Nebraska volleyball is going to contend for a national championship with the likes of Texas and Penn State and Pitt, etc., etc. But now that Cale Henderson is in the chat room, I do got to mention that the Las Vegas Thrill, the Pro Volleyball Federation's women's volleyball team, is heading down to Omaha to take Omaha, Nebraska, to take on the Omaha Supernovas this Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, which I think is 6 p.m. Central and 4 p.m. Pacific. So, Cale, if you're in the area of the CHI Health Center, I definitely would encourage you to go to that one because volleyball is different in that state. When it comes to volleyball, it's so different. And I should also mention there was 11,000 plus in the San Diego Mojo versus Omaha Supernovas match. So, yes, the Las Vegas Thrill is going to Omaha this Wednesday. So get your tickets while you can and make sure to follow their clear bag policy. If you're free on Wednesday, I'm not going to force you to go, but definitely check it out if you can, Cale. Yes, so that's going to do it for the Pro Volleyball Federation. Sorry if I was blanking on Jill Gillen. I can't believe I was blanking on her name, but I wasn't blanking on Taylor Head, which is another one of Arkansas's top hitters. But regardless, that's it for Pro Volleyball Federation. And Cale Henderson said it best. Nebraska goes crazy for volleyball. He is not lying. Cale Henderson is telling nothing but the truth. Again, back-to-back 11,000 in attendance for both of their matches. I can only imagine what this week is going to be. And keep in mind that, it might be a little difficult because it's a Wednesday, but you never know what's going to be happening. And Cale also makes note, he says, Omaha is looking to add an NHL team, so big things for the state of Nebraska. Oh, that's interesting. So there you have it in regards to all things Nebraska. But that's going to do it for the Pro Volleyball Federation. Let's jump to some 3C2A men's volleyball. So the 3C2 men's volleyball scene has been quite amazing. And there's actually the BIC, or the AVCA's men's and boys volleyball newsletter, actually released their 2-year college players to watch for. And a few of them actually hail from the 3C2A. So unfortunately for those that didn't send their players in when it comes to this whole AVCA players to watch for, or 2-year players to watch for, don't fret. It doesn't mean your team sucks or your players suck. It just means that you just didn't send them. That being said, here are some of the AVCA 2-year college players to watch for. So Peter Droog, middle blocker from Santa Monica College. Troy Fitzgerald, right side, Santa Barbara City College. Nathan Kramer, outside hitter, Santa Monica College. Cole Richards, outside hitter / middle blocker, Santa Barbara City College. Jason Walmer, who is Jack's younger brother, setter for Santa Monica College. And that's that for the 3C2A. There are three other players. William Joe Kyler from Monroe College, Timothy Reyes, setter from Monroe College, and Furin Kasumapin. Oh man, this last name is going to be Furin Pinum. Yeah. that sounds like a Key and Peele name in my opinion, but Furin Kasumapinium, setter for College of DuPage. So those are your 2-year college players to watch for. I am just not doing good with names this year, but for this episode, but it's all good. All right, but that's that for those little players right there. So this past weekend I did attend 4 3C2A men's volleyball matches at Orange Coast College. It was the John Altabelli Memorial Quad to pay homage to the former baseball coach at Orange Coast College who was caught in the helicopter crash in Calabasas back in 2020. So when it came to that match, Orange Coast College, Irvine Valley both took on Long Beach City and Santa Monica. And the first match between El Camino and Long Beach City both took on Orange Coast and Irvine Valley. And the first match between Irvine Valley and Long Beach City, it was a barn burner, dude. It was a really good match. It went 5. First set, Irvine Valley trailed 24-21. They tied up at 24 apiece, and then eventually Long Beach took the next 2, won at 26-24. Irvine Valley then took the second set 25-19. They served really tough. And then third set, Irvine Valley was up 24-22, but then Long Beach City scored the last 4 points, took that third set 26-24, and then the fourth set, Long Beach City had match point at 24-23, but then Irvine Valley rattled off 3 straight points, took that fourth set 26-24. Then the fifth set, it was a barn burner. It was 9-9 at one point, and then I think it was a 6-2 run, 6-1 run helped Irvine Valley take that fifth set 15-10, if not 15-11, and winning the match right there. It was a big win for the Lasers. They also swept El Camino. Orange Coast swept El Camino in their first match of the season, and then they swept Long Beach City. Now, the first set was 25-21. Long Beach was putting a lot of pressure on Orange Coast, and OCC was just not playing their game in the first set. They were serving it into the net. They were hitting it out or hitting it wide or getting stuffed. OCC just didn't look like themselves, and then their game started really picking up. And eventually, they looked like the two-time state champions from the past 2 years. And then second set, it was 25-22. Long Beach nearly made a comeback in that set, but OCC being the talented team that they were, they closed the deal off from a kill from their libero, who was playing outside. And then set 3, Long Beach just got smoked. Now, I don't know if you all know this, but Long Beach City is actually under a new head coach, Alex Nikolov. No, he is not related to Alex Nikolov, but Angel Nikolov has actually he's actually part of USA Volleyball. He's done work for USA Volleyball. He is in his first year at Long Beach City following the resignation of Jonathan Charette, who, from what I heard, stepped down because of family stuff. But some were also saying that he wanted to go to another business and whatnot. Orange Coast is under Travis Turner, who's in his 18th year as head coach. Definitely check out my interview with him. It reminds me a little of Bill Belichick. That's why I call Travis Turner the Bill Belichick of 3C2A men's volleyball. Except Travis Turner is still employed with OCC, and I don't know if he's going anywhere. But I digress. But that's going to do it for the 3C2A. This week, I guess the notable matchup to watch for is Orange Coast takes on San Diego Mesa at 1 p.m. on Wednesday. at San Diego Mesa College. The Olympians, they had a nice little week. They beat Santiago Canyon in 3 on Friday, and then they also beat Fullerton College in 5, and then they beat Long Beach City. Well, those 2 matches were on Friday. Wednesday's match against Long Beach City, that went 5. That was a rematch of last year's 3C2A semifinal. And the Olympians, I think they can be good this year. Now, unfortunately, I have plans on Wednesday. But that being said, if you're ever in the mood for some 3C2A men's volleyball, definitely check it out. So that's that for the 3C2A and men's volleyball. And then we had a scrimmage between the Los Angeles Blaze and the San Diego Wild. Got to make note of that because I, Teran Rodriguez, am your one-stop shop for all things NVA news. And it was definitely expected, unfortunately, for the Los Angeles Blaze. But the San Diego Wild, they unofficially swept the Los Angeles Blaze 25-20, 25-13, and 25-23. I don't know if y'all knew this, but Nick England is back playing for the San Diego Wild. So remember, if y'all checked out my interview with him, he's not coaching the San Diego Wild. He's actually going to just be doing general manager and owner stuff, and then he might be seeing the court a little bit. If he does play, then it'll be something legendary if you ask me. But that being said, for the Wild, I really think that they're in for a great season for the NVA. Again, it's still unknown if they're going to be starting in April, if not in May, but we'll see what happens. All right, but that is going to do it for that little bit of NVA news. Hopefully we get more NVA scrimmages, and hopefully I will be able to attend a gosh dang NVA scrimmage. Just because I need my NVA fix, man. All right, but that's that for the NVA and anything like college, 2-year college, or pro volleyball. Now let's jump on into Week 6 of the NCAA men's volleyball season. And we have quite a bit of matches to watch for. We have a grand total of 10 ranked-on-ranked matches this week, with 4 being top 5 matches. So it starts on Tuesday. Number 13 Loyola heads down to Fort Wayne. Yes, Fort Wayne, not Purdue, West Lafayette, to take on number 20 Purdue Fort Wayne. All right, so Loyola Chicago, they kind of need a nice little bounce-back win. I don't think that it's going to be an easy one. I would not be surprised if Purdue Fort Wayne and Loyola both went 5. I would also not be surprised if Purdue Fort Wayne somehow, hence the word somehow, upset Loyola. But Purdue Fort Wayne, coming off that win over Penn State, they're dangerous. John Didrich is dangerous. And now that they have John Didrich's left-hand man in Mark Frazier, they're going to be something scary. And Bryce Walker is still very good as advertised in the middle. So Purdue Fort Wayne, I expect them to come ready to go, and I expect them to not make anything easy on those Ramblers. Then we jump to Wednesday, another MIVA matchup. Number 6, Ohio State, heads down to Romeoville to take on number 14, Lewis. I will just say, Lewis obviously had that bad loss to LIU, but they can make up for it if they beat Ohio State on their home court. Ohio State beat Lindenwood this past Sunday in 4 sets. I think Ohio State is over the losses to Penn State. I will say they're not going to get an easy matchup with Lewis. I think they're in for a barn burner. But I will also say that Ohio State should bounce back. I'm not trying to say Lewis is going to lose, but I feel the Buckeyes should be back on their you-know-what. And if they have Jacob Pastor 100% or close to 100%, I think they're going to be something scary. And Jen B says OH, and I say IO. And then also on Wednesday, I'm going to be in attendance for this matchup. Number 15 USC heading down to the Bren Event Center to take on number 7 UC Irvine. This is going to be a very fun matchup. And again, it's another Big West versus MPSF matchup. Hence why the title is called the MPSF versus Big West. We actually have quite a bit of MPSF versus Big West matches, especially that are the ranked-on-ranked scene. So USC, look, they kind of got to get this bad taste of losing to UC San Diego out of their mouth because they're taking on a very good quality opponent in UC Irvine. And if I remember last year, USC was able to win this one by the hair on their chinny chin chin. But that being said, USC need to figure out the consistency of their game. And will it be feeding the middle more? Will it mean Dylan Klein having to go Superman? Will it mean Jack Ducher aiding Dylan Klein? It just means a whole lot, just because USC needs to win, because next week they open up conference play against Concordia Irvine, which they should win that on paper, but with the inconsistency that I've been seeing with USC, losing to the likes of CSUN and UC San Diego, both teams that are ranked, by the way, ranked under USC, I just think that USC could be in a whole heap of trouble. I'm not trying to say that USC is going to lose not one but two matches to UC Irvine this week, but I will say it's going to be a whole lot tough to beat the Anteaters at home and beat them on Saturday, because the Anteaters and the Trojans play each other at Galen Center this Saturday, which I think it's going to be a big-time matchup. And I'm really debating on going to that one. It's just that it's so far. But we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll go, maybe I won't go. Time will tell. Then we jump to Thursday. Now we get to the big matches. But first, before I get to that big match, we have number 12 Pepperdine heading down to God's Country to take on number 17 UC Santa Barbara. What do these two teams have in common? They lost to Princeton last week. So both these teams are trying to get back on track, as both these teams are actually going to be facing each other on Saturday at Pepperdine. Look, I think Pepperdine is still good as advertised, but Santa Barbara still needs a little bit of a big win. And all the pressure's on Pepperdine, because if they lose this one, or if they lose both, they'll have lost at least 3, if not 4 in a row, going into MPSF play. And their first opponent in MPSF play is UCLA. So Pepperdine needs to win this one, at least one this week. For the Gauchos, they still have time before Big West Conference play begins. I think UC Santa Barbara does have a lot of upside, as long as they have their usual starting lineup and they're not shuffling everything around like they did against Damon. So for the Gauchos, I'm just going to say, I think this is kind of their time to shine, and I would not be surprised if Santa Barbara beat Pepperdine. It's just that Pepperdine still has a lot of good players on their roster, such as Cole Kachansky and Akinakinwumi. So there you have it right there in that matchup. Then we get this fun matchup. And by the way, that Pepperdine-UC Santa Barbara matchup, it's another MPSF versus Big West matchup. Then also on Thursday, this matchup is going to be one of the best this week. Number 5 Stanford at number 3 Hawaii. The two teams also play on Saturday, but Stanford at Hawaii, this is going to be a fun one. Stanford coming off of that loss to CSUN, now they get another Big West opponent, but it's basically going to be the second older brother of the Big West. And for Hawaii, they get another chance to prove themselves on why they deserve to be number 2 and not anything below that. So for Hawaii, my thing is, they have the home court advantage. Hawaii volleyball is what drives Hawaii. Hawaii men's and women's volleyball is basically the heartbeat of the Stan Sheriff Center, or Simplify Arena, as y'all like to call it. But for Stanford, they have a lot to prove in this match. They got to prove to me and everyone that they deserve to be in the top 5, if not the top 3. For Hawaii, they've only lost once, and that loss could have been avoided. But I will say, this is definitely a chance for Hawaii to prove that they deserve to be in that top 5, top 3, if not maybe top 2. I think Hawaii is deserving of number 2, in my opinion. But this is just one man's opinion, and honestly, that's probably because Hawaii has played a little bit of a tougher schedule as opposed to Grand Canyon, who unfortunately hasn't really proven to me why they deserve to be number 2. With that being said, Hawaii-Stanford is going to be a barn burner. Then we jump to Friday. This is not a ranked-on-ranked matchup, but this is a team that is receiving votes. We have Lincoln Memorial hitting the road to Princeton to take on number 10 Princeton. All right, Lincoln Memorial, we see that this team can win at home. They still own the longest home winning streak in the nation. I want to say that's at 31 games. They did win last weekend against North Greenville. Now they got to take Princeton on the road. And here's the thing. Princeton, I think, has kind of found their swagger. Ever since that their road trip has ended, Princeton, I think, looks like a whole different team. And the scary thing is, Ben Harrington hasn't even had to go off. They have a new weapon in their arsenal in Nairo Omene. Now, what does this mean for Lincoln Memorial? Well, they're going to have to play their you-know-whats off. If they can pull off a big win, they'll be back in the top 20 for sure. But Princeton is such a good opponent, and they're well coached in Sam Schweisky. So I will say this, it's going to be a tough matchup for Lincoln Memorial, but I definitely think they can hang with Princeton. I just don't think they're going to beat Princeton anytime soon. Then we have another MIVA matchup. We have number 13 Loyola hitting the road to Columbus to take on the number 6 Ohio State. All right, this is a big-time matchup for both the Buckeyes and the Ramblers. This week in general is a huge one for Loyola because Loyola is on the road this week. Ohio State, they got to defend home court. Well, no, they are at home. They are on the road on Wednesday, and then they return home to take on Loyola. So it's a huge week for Ohio State and for Loyola. Loyola really has to cross its T's and dot its I's because this could be the difference between finishing first in the MIVA and finishing second and getting a matchup that you don't want versus getting a matchup that kind of suits you better. Hence why Loyola tied for first last year, but finished second and eventually got bounced in the first round of the MIVA tournament against McKendree. So for Ohio State, this week is the chance to prove that they have a chance to prove themselves as a top 10 team. Well, not top 10 team, a top 5 team, just because I think they're so close to being a top 5 team. Unfortunately, there's just a big old log jam with Long Beach State and Grand Canyon ahead of them. Then you got Hawaii and Stanford ahead. And then you got UCLA ahead of them. But 2 wins this week for Ohio State, I think, could debatably put Ohio State ahead of UCLA. And then if UCLA loses twice this week, I think you can make the argument that Ohio State deserves to be number 5 and UCLA deserves to be number 6. And that's perfect segue to go into the next matchup and the match and series of the week. Number 4 UCLA at number 1 Long Beach State. The two teams will be playing each other on Saturday at UCLA, but I'm going to be in attendance for UCLA Long Beach State. It's going to be a barn burner. This is a rematch of last year's NCAA men's volleyball semifinals from last year in the tournament. I think Long Beach State is playing some of its best volleyball, and here's the thing. Once they're now going to be putting their whole lineup in play, such as Clark Godbold, Sotir Shipanis, Simon Torwi, Lazar Buchkov, Aiden Knipe, Mason Briggs, Skylar Varga. The list goes on and on for their team. Like, their team is so deep this year. Again, I would not be surprised if they wound up winning the national championship on their home court. For UCLA, they still have a lot of questions to answer, such as who's going to be the libero. Are they going to stay with Ethan Champlin at libero, or are they going to move back to Luka Kirchain and Hide Nakamura? Will the middles be set more? Will Cooper Robinson have another 20-plus kill game? Those are a lot of big questions that UCLA has to answer. And the thing is, it's Long Beach State gets to host, then UCLA gets to host. So UCLA has a lot of pressure on their heels now that they got to go to Long Beach State. But that being said, I think it's going to be a barn burner. Get your popcorn ready. Get your tickets while you can. I'm expecting this to be a sold. I'm hoping this is sold out. If this is sold out, then this is only good for the game of men's volleyball. Then on Saturday, like I said, it's basically just round 2 of the MPSF versus the Big West, as you got number 5 Stanford at number 3 Hawaii, number 17 UC Santa Barbara at number 12 Pepperdine, number 1 Long Beach State at number 4 UCLA, and then you got number 7 UC Irvine at number 15 USC. Again, I'm thinking about going to the USC Irvine at USC matchup, but time will tell, especially since, well, USC, I'm not sure if I'll be able to, I mean, I could maybe make it, barring no traffic and barring I'm able to get there, but time will tell. All right, but that is that for your NCAA Men's Volleyball Week 6 matches to watch for. And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. It is that time to drop the beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Set Point. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen anytime, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you. Shout out to the chat room, Jen B, Mikey Two Guns, Cale Henderson, Larry B, Patty Bax, and Ralph Calise. I really do appreciate y'all tuning in. And David Crooks, he also popped in the chat room. He said, "What's good?" I will be back on Friday for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, but the next time you'll see me is Wednesday at the Brent Event Center when USC takes on UC Irvine. And then on Friday, you'll also see me when UCLA takes on Long Beach State at the Pyramid. It's going to be a fun match. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourself a great rest of the evening. Enjoy the volleyball action. Again, I will see you Wednesday at the Bren for USC UC Irvine. Peace!